Okay, we are here the whole week. We have been discussing and talking about John Paul II, Saint Faustina, the diary of the Divine Mercy. We've been talking all about Jesus, we trust in you, Divine Mercy Sunday, the Divine Mercy Chaplet, the novena that's happening. And we have our friend Rick Palini back with us. Rick, we're going to try to give you the whole entire The Next Right Thing segment, both segments, to really give us all the instructions to receive the graces of divine mercy this weekend, Rick, because we've been pushing for everyone to go to confession, to get in a state of grace, to have a plan, to really stay in a state of grace. So, Rick, take it away.
All righty, and feel free, Debbie and Adam, to ask questions. Adam, your questions last segment were wonderful, and they helped to clarify, and we want to do that. It's very important. Entry 699 of the diary states, "The soul that will go to confession and receive Holy Communion shall obtain complete forgiveness of sins and punishment. On that day are opened all the divine floodgates through which graces flow. Let no soul fear to draw near to me, even though his sins be as scarlet. My mercy is so great that no mind, be it of man or of angel, will be able to fathom it throughout all eternity. Everything that exists has come from the very depths of my most tender mercy. Every soul in its relation to me will contemplate my love and mercy throughout eternity. The feast of mercy emerged from my very depths of tenderness. It is my desire that it be solemnly celebrated on the first Sunday after Easter. Mankind will not have peace until it turns to the font of my mercy." You know, I've mentioned before that one of the things that happens is people say, I just can't believe that God is going to forgive my sins and the punishment that's due to them. And I always say, it sounds unfathomable, doesn't it? And it is. And Jesus states right there that neither man nor angel will ever be able to understand the depths of his mercy. And when we look at the Divine Mercy devotion, it all stems from the love of God. Creation stemmed from the love of God. Our redemption stemmed from the love of God. Everything that we have stems from the love of God. And this feast especially. You know, Jesus said to St. Faustina, "On that day, the very depths of my tender mercy are opened. I pour out the ocean of graces upon those souls who approach the font of my mercy. On that day, all the divine floodgates through which graces flow are open." Regarding the graces of Divine Mercy Sunday, Jesus told St. Faustina, "The soul that will go to confession and receive Holy Communion shall obtain complete forgiveness of sins and punishment." It speaks of confession. Confession does not have to be on Divine Mercy Sunday. As a matter of fact, the individual only has to be in a state of grace. Only has to be in a state of grace. The recommendation is to go to confession sometime during Lent, but if you're not able to and you haven't committed mortal sin, that's sufficient. You must be in a state of grace. You must receive Holy Communion on Divine Mercy Sunday or the Saturday, the Vigil Mass. Did you have a question, Adam?
So if I was going to make a flow chart of what I need to do, if I was, somebody listening saying, okay, tell me what I need to do, is what you're saying is I need to get to confession before Sunday and then not commit a mortal sin until I make it to Sunday, and then I need to receive communion either at Vigil on Saturday evening, late afternoon, or Divine Mercy Sunday, and then I get the forgiveness and the removal of the punishment. Is that true?
There's a couple more things. You must receive the Eucharist in a state of grace, trusting in God's mercy, asking for the grace, and they recommend Father Chris Alar, who's the provincial for the Marians of the Immaculate Conception. He actually wrote a little bit of a prayer that you can get on a prayer card. And again, you have to trust in God's mercy. You need to ask for the grace. And you can make up your own simple prayer. I'll read Father Alar's prayer, and then I'll just give you some recommendations. He says, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of the living God, you promised Saint Faustina that the soul that has been to confession, I have, and the soul that receives Holy Communion with trust and divine mercy, I am, will receive the complete forgiveness of all sins and punishment. Lord, please give me grace. Jesus, I trust in you. Now, all you need to do is tell Jesus that you trust in him. Ask him for the grace promised on Divine Mercy Sunday. Tell him in your own words that you're sorry for your sins and you resolve not to sin any longer. And that's it.
Well,
that's it.
Rick, let me just jump in here, because I had said when we first reintroduced you that I missed it last year, and what I mean by that, there was a pledge drive happening. That's when I learned about all this amazing grace about of forgiveness of all sins and punishment. This just incredible gift. But in the criteria that the priest who was on air at the time during the pledge drive, he had said that you had to go to confession within so many days before Divine Mercy. And I had gone earlier during Lent, so I had the pledge drive. I wasn't able to make confession again before Divine Mercy, but then somebody had said you can do it afterwards so many days. So there's this little bit of a strange requirement there with confession. Do you know specifically, Rick, if it's just because then technically I did do it all last year, because I went to confession during Lent, and I did exactly that, Rick. I prayed that prayer, Father Chris Alar's prayer. I did go to Divine Mercy Mass. I did receive communion, but I had gone to confession a lot earlier than that. But it got me concerned because I said something about you had to go within, I think, 8 days or a week. I can't remember, but do you know anything about that, Rick? I just want to be clear for people, because it really bummed me out last year.
Debbie, first of all, on that day, the floodgates of heaven are open. The floodgates of grace are open. And I believe, and I'll clarify your question in a minute, I believe that anyone who asks, who is in a state of grace, who receives communion, will receive it.
Oh, good.
Our God is not a God of, I gotcha. He's not going to say, oh, you have to do it within 20 days. You did 21. You don't get it. He wants us to receive forgiveness of sin and all punishment. All punishment. It's not a second baptism, but it is like a second baptism. Okay, you can't be baptized twice. Now, here's where the confusion comes in. And Adam knows this, and I think you also know it. There are conditions for a plenary indulgence. And those conditions are that you, first of all, for the Divine Mercy grace and a plenary indulgence, you have to be in a state of grace. You can't be in mortal sin. So when they say, so many days before, so many days after, if you're in mortal sin, it has to be before. In the early part of this millennium, it used to be 9 days before a plenary indulgence or 9 days after. They changed that requirement for a plenary indulgence to 20 days before or after. That is not necessary for the grace of Divine Mercy Sunday. You have to be in a state of grace. They recommend that you go during Lent, which I always do, But again, it's the confusion between the plenary indulgence and the grace
Right.
of Divine Mercy Sunday.
Right. Okay.
I've heard all kinds of things. And I think I mentioned to you on Good Friday, you begin the Divine Mercy Novena, and you pray the chaplet. And then on Divine Mercy Sunday, they recommend venerating the image. Well, those are wonderful ways to prepare for Divine Mercy Sunday, but they're not essential to receive the grace of Divine Mercy Sunday. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and the plenary indulgence, I totally understand that as well. But you're talking to somebody who went to Catholic school, Rick, and so I have to get things really perfect. Okay, the show team here at Morning Joy knows that everything's got to be perfect. So I want to make sure. But now I feel super happy because I did do it, right last year. So this is exciting.
So Rick,
I'd like to make one clarification. The grace of Divine Mercy Sunday is only for the individual. There's also a plenary indulgence available on Divine Mercy Sunday, which can be applied to a soul in purgatory. Now, we don't have time to get into that, but I wanted to make that clarification. Okay. The grace of Divine Mercy Sunday is only for the soul. Now, your questions, Adam?
Yes, so number one is, does this include the punishment for all the previous sins in life that have already been confessed, but we still bear a temporal punishment that we're going to pay in purgatory for those? So is it only the sins I confess on Divine Mercy Sunday, or is it all my previous sins in the baggage with those? That's number one. Number two, and I know a lot of people are going to ask this, is this approved by the Universal Church? Meaning, is it basically an indulgence that the Universal Church gives us from her storehouse of graces, or is this just a private revelation that we trust in personally?
On your first question, it is forgiveness for all past sins, even unconfessed sins. Even unconfessed sins. So that is, again, unfathomable. It is not an indulgence, it's a grace, and it is approved by the church. It has been studied, it has been approved. I very honestly, that particular question about whether it comes from the store of graces, I'm saying from what I understand that I don't believe it is, because it is unique. It is unique. I'm going to have to find out. I'm going to be in Stockbridge this weekend celebrating Divine Mercy Sunday at the shrine, and I hopefully will have an opportunity to get that question answered and get it back to you. I do apologize, but I don't believe it comes from the storehouse of grace from the Universal Church.
Okay, that's helpful. That's helpful. But if it's approved, it sounds like it's coming from Jesus directly as a gift that he has promised through this private revelation. But it sounds like the
Correct.
approval, the church can't guarantee it in the sense of saying this is an indulgence that the church establishes and has the authority to do so. But the church is, I guess, doing as much as she can by pointing to this and saying, we approve this offer that Jesus made that he let her know about.
Yes, and the fact is, it is not an indulgence. They're very specific about that. It's a grace.
What is the main difference between the Divine Mercy grace this Sunday and a plenary indulgence?
The biggest difference, Adam, is the fact that for a plenary indulgence, you must be detached from all venial and mortal sin. And for the grace of Divine Mercy Sunday, that is not necessary. That is enormous. It's an enormous difference, because I don't know anyone who's detached from all sin. And for the grace of Divine Mercy Sunday, that is not a requirement. And, to me, the proof was that Pope John Paul died after celebrating Mass on the vigil of Divine Mercy Sunday. And he was canonized very quickly. And I think that was the way of Jesus allowing him, who did so much to spread this message, show us that, guess what? What I told you is true. He confessed, he received Eucharist, he passed away, and They say if you die right after receiving Eucharist worthily and following every one of the steps to receive the grace, you go straight to heaven. And I believe that with my whole heart and soul.
Those were my two questions. I guess in the minutes that we have left, if you could give people a numbered list, it sounds like, if I could be so bold, I think I might understand it. I need to get to confession before this Sunday.
Yeah.
I need to go to communion at either Vigil Mass Saturday, late afternoon, evening, or Sunday, and receive communion. During that, I need to be trusting in God's divine mercy and asking for this special grace of this forgiveness of all my sins, confessed or not, through my life, and the purgatory punishment associated with those. And at that point, I then have some confidence about receiving that grace, and of course, I have trust in that, and it is approved by the Church in terms of this is a private revelation that's been approved for promulgation, throughout the world.
That is correct.
Mm-hmm. And then just to make sure, because if others went to Catholic school like I did, just to make sure we have all of the requirements, you didn't have to participate in the novena, and you don't have to have an image, the Divine Mercy image, right, Rick? Or
no, those are ways. Okay. Those are ways to celebrate the feast and to prepare for the feast. But again, it's the way that Jesus draws us to him. And each year, if you celebrate Divine Mercy Sunday, each year the number of sins that we have to be forgiven for should be fewer and fewer and fewer. Right. It's like if you're doing a radio show, if it doesn't start out right, you stop, right? And you start over again, then you take out what was not right. And if you're making a movie, it's take one, take two, take three, until you get everything right. And to me, that's what Divine Mercy Sunday is all about. It's every year getting better and better, not committing better and bigger sins because, I can get this forgiven on Divine Mercy Sunday. No, that's presumption. It's loving Jesus so much and responding to the love he has for us so that we become more perfect, be perfect as the Father is perfect. And that's what we should be striving for.
Right. Well, and we're going to title it. I just want to make sure Tim made a list for us and is giving it over to Keith to make the short that we'll put on GRN online YouTube page. But we're title it Divine Mercy Grace. Is that how you title it? Or the Grace of Divine Mercy Sunday? How do you title it?
Divine Mercy, the Grace of Divine Mercy Sunday.
Okay. Grace of Divine Mercy Sunday.
Or Grace of the Divine Mercy Feast.
Okay.
And you're going to get folks, because I know it happens all the time. They're going to say, well, no, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. That's not what I learned.
Okay.
And I was trained by some pretty good folks. I'm not perfect, but I know that those steps that you have there will absolutely get folks that grace and help to get them to heaven.
Oh, amen to that. Well, you do a fine job on the work that you do, spreading the Divine Mercy messages with Father Jacek Mazur. I love him as well. He's an incredible priest. But I will tell you, Rick, now I'm super excited because last year when I participated, I have to tell you personally, when I left Mass on Divine Mercy, I felt like I was floating. Literally, I felt like I was floating. I felt so light on my feet that it was amazing. And so I just want to say thank you to you for all the work that you do spreading the messages of St. Faustina. Because you spread them so well, I gave the diary out a couple years ago to all my friends and family members for Christmas, and they loved it. So I just want to say thank you. Adam and I are so appreciative to you for all the work that you do, Rick. And we're getting ready to close. So I think, Adam, you said you're all set. And Rick Palini, you're amazing. And we're all looking forward to Divine Mercy Sunday. So make sure you get to confession quickly and participate in the graces of Divine Mercy. With that, we'll send it back to Keith.